a bit of an introduction to me. I hope you've all had a nice Sunday. I've had a wonderful time. I spent Sunday at the Imperial War Museum with my little 4-year-old grandson. The nice thing about that is that had I carried on drinking, I'd never have met him, because I know I would have died before he was even born. And I wouldn't have met my little granddaughter either, who's 1.5. So they're two fantastic, rewarding things about my life already from having quit alcohol. So if ever you need good examples of why you should give up, those are two wonderful examples. So I'm Julian. I've been a club soda member, it seems like forever. I think certainly probably from the early days of Laura setting up this wonderful organisation. I'm the author of 2 books about quitting alcohol, and I'm not shy to promote those because all of the proceeds from those books goes to a wonderful charity called The Connection, which is a charity for the homeless, run by St Martin in the Fields in Trafalgar Square. And the 2 books are, the first one is called I Don't Drink, which is how to quit alcohol. It's the first book I wrote after I gave up. And the other book is called One Less for the Road, Is Their Life Alcohol, which I wrote for people who, like I was, don't want to quit alcohol, but you know you have to. And you've got to somehow get your mind in gear to what is life going to be like without drink? Is it possible? Are you going to be able to cope? So this evening, I'm hoping to get some questions from you on quitting. So please send them in. But why am I qualified to write those books? Well, I was an alcoholic. I wasn't the sort of alcoholic how I imagined alcoholics to be. My brother certainly was. My brother was very wizened before he died from alcohol. He died at age 56. He was completely yellow. His eyes had gone yellow. It was all jaundice. He was known to the local A&E because they'd find him night after night in a gutter, probably being beaten up by some of his so-called friends, etc., etc. And that's how I imagine an alcoholic to be, someone who spent the first thing when you got up in the morning, you had to have a drink, whether it was vodka or it was a bottle of wine or whatever. And I know that's how my brother was. Well, I never did that. I didn't drink in the morning. I didn't drink till lunchtime. I was the famous sort of the sun must be over the yardarm somewhere. But I drank every single day. I drank 2.5 bottles of wine every single day, and plus cider on top of that. And I know that alcohol completely dictated my life every single day since really I was probably 18, and I started drinking when I was 14, but certainly since I was 18, I would plan my life and my day around drink. Whether that was when I was going to drink that day, what I was going to do, how much drink I had in the fridge, if we were going on holiday, where were we going to stay, if we were going to the theatre, what are we going to see, will they have a bar, shall I get drunk before we go, all that sort of terrible stuff dictated my life. And so I was an alcoholic, but I didn't realise that until I quit. And you only realise that when you quit and you find this massive thing in your life missing, and it is that huge drive for where's the next drink coming from. You suddenly think there's something gone, and it is the fact that you're dependent on alcohol, and that goes away. So as I say, my brother died when he was 56, and my life expectancy at the time, I was 5 years younger than him, so I was 51 when he died. I expected to live till I was 57, and that was my ambition. I thought, if I get there, I've lived longer than him, I drink the same sort of amount as him, I'll really achieve something. Well, what a pathetic outlook to have in life. As I say, I'm now 60, so I'm well past that date. I'm well past my sell-by date, if you like, so to speak, and I now expect to live till at least into my 90s. I have a fabulous life because I've given up drink, and I would never look back. So what was I like at that time when I quit? And I got some notes just to remind me of all those sort of aspects. Well, first of all, from a physical perspective, before I quit, I had type 2 diabetes, which I didn't realise how scary a disease that is. I had high blood pressure, I had cholesterol, I had regular periods of gout, which if you haven't had is a very, very crippling disease of the joints, and it's caused by crystals that get in the joint. So you can't move your joints without absolute sheer agony. My mother, God bless her, and she also died of alcohol. Used to call it was worse than actually childbirth. She used to get gout as well. I couldn't walk anywhere without pain, and I put that down to age and arthritis. I couldn't walk bare feet, so I had to wear shoes all the time. So the fact, even when we lived by the sea, walking on the sand, I would wear shoes. So I was really a physical complete wreck. And I was blaming that not on drink, but I was blaming it on age, and I was blaming it on stupid things like the fact that I used to be in the army when I was in my 20s, and I used to run in boots as the army do. And I thought, oh, well, it's all that training. I'll put it down to that. It wasn't any of that. And all of those physical symptoms have completely gone since I quit alcohol, and most of them went within a few weeks or months of quitting alcohol. So now I do run. I swim a mile every day. In fact, I swam a mile before this evening. I can run around barefoot. I do karate every week. It's just unbelievable, the change. So I was a physical wreck, and I was also 3 stone overweight as well, which didn't help. And that certainly didn't help with the type 2 diabetes. And most of that was booze. I lost that weight within 2.5 months of quitting alcohol, which is a huge amount to lose. And it just shows how much calories there are in booze. I was drinking the equivalent of 8 cheeseburgers every day on top of the food I was eating. From a mental aspect, I know in fact I was stressed all the time. I was actually, one of the things I do is I retired, semi-retired, to live by the coast because I felt so old, but I was encouraged to try teaching, and I thought I'd give that a go. And I did a year as a student teacher, and I gave that up because I couldn't cope with the stress of that. And what that was, if you've ever tried teaching, there's a lot of planning that you have to do in the evening or after school. And I, of course, would do my planning after I'd had a drink. So I'd get home, I'd have 5 lessons to plan, I'd have a glass of wine, and I'd plan a lesson. And I'd reward myself with another glass of wine, which became a bottle. So by the time I did the 3rd plan, I was already drunk. And by the time I got to the 4th or 5th plan, I'd forgotten everything I'd written about the first 3, and the whole thing was just a complete, utter mess. So of course, when I went to the school the following day, I couldn't remember what I'd planned. The lessons were a mess, and that created stress, and that just built up over the time. I thought, teaching's not for me. It wasn't anything to do with that. It was teaching, and drink didn't work. And I now know that. So mentally, I was a mess. Relationship-wise, I won't talk about the relationship with my wife, but I'm amazed she stayed with me for all the years that she has, because I know the impact I had on her life as well. And my children were untrustworthy of me. They were wary of being with me because I was a larger-than-life character, but out of control, because I wasn't even knowing what I was doing. I was just being stupid. I was getting up to things. As long as they made people laugh or they made me laugh, it didn't matter that it was being hurtful or upsetting to other people. And of course, that was causing great embarrassment to my 2 daughters. Again, I was unaware of all of that. So what a hell of a mess I was in. So what finally made me quit? I had what I've described and what a friend of mine described as a tug, an epiphany, if you like. As I say, we'd moved to live down by the coast, and I was meeting a lot of old people, as opposed to the people I was working in the city, which are about the same sort of age as me. A lot of my friends were dead by the time they were early 60s, things like that. So I was in that sort of young, mid-50s type environment of people who didn't expect to live that long because we were heavy drinkers. And all of a sudden I was surrounded by 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds. And they say, Julian, can you help me push my boat out, or help me with this, that, and the other? And I was older than them. And I felt, this is absolutely pathetic. I can't have this. Something's got to be done about that. It was a shame, really. It was a shame with myself for being so old and decrepit. And I woke up one Christmas, it was just after Christmas, we'd had a party the night before, in terrible, terrible gout. And I knew that I'd ruined Christmas, ruined the year, because I was going to be crippled through all of it. And something deep within me just said, that's enough. You can blame it on the gout, you can blame it on the agony that you're in, but you know what's causing this, Julian, and you are going to give up drink now. And I've never, ever had a drink since. And that was 5 years ago. I've never wanted a drink since. And I laid in bed that morning and I made a plan of how I was going to drink. Now, as I said, I didn't know I was an alcoholic. So I'd never been to rehab, as I imagine alcoholics would have done. I'd never read a book. I'd never spoken to anybody about alcoholism because it was a subject I didn't want to face. But I lay there and I made a plan of how I was going to quit. And that's what I really wrote down in that first book, of how I went about that. And it focused mainly around that one thing, finding that one big reason that I was going to hold dear to my heart, which I knew and I had as gout, that was going to keep me away. I thought, if I ever drink again, I'll get the gout back. I'll get rid of it this time when it's gone. I never want that back. I never want the embarrassment of having to say to my family, friends, to work, and everyone else, I'm sorry, but I'm crippled again. I can't do this, that, and the other. Had I known then how absolutely fantastically my life would have been changed, it would have been unbelievable. Had I read a book like one of the ones I've written, I know that other people have read, and thought, wow, your life can be this different, I wouldn't have believed it. And I think that's why it's important to meet people and to talk to people and have stories, and why it's important to meet people at Club Soda to find out the genuine truth from people who can actually say to you, look, your life gets changed, and it gets changed that quick. So when I meet people, and I do meet people in the city, quite a lot of people, I don't do one-on-one sort of conversations to help people quit necessarily, but obviously I work with a lot of people, and a lot of people see my example. They go out for lunch with me and they say, well, Julian, you're not drinking. I say, I don't drink. Actually, I'm thinking of quitting, or, I've got a friend who wants to quit. And so we do have discussions. The first thing I ask to somebody is, why do they want to quit? And I'd like to hear from some of you as to why you want to quit. What is it you want to get or change in your life? As I say, it was me, it was gout. I was talking to a guy about a month ago. I'd just come back from holiday, actually, and he was saying to me, Julian, I said, why do you want to quit? He said, for my children. He said, I know I'm not giving them enough of my time. I know I get home from work. I get home late because I've been out drinking. They're either in bed or I haven't got time for them on the weekend. I'm planning my day around going out drinking in the afternoon with my mates. And he said, I'm aware life's passing by and they're only going to be children once. So I need to give up drink. Well, the answer is obvious. What on earth are you doing still drinking? And I find it incredible now that people are saying things like that to me, why they can't think for themselves. What the hell are you doing with your life? Why just, what on earth are you doing to go home today and have another drink with that knowledge that you're ruining your kid's life? Just stop. I find it very difficult. So what is it that makes it so hard for people to face up to that reality that they're destroying their life and other people's lives? And drink is only a habit. The problem is, I think, that you get, unless you have that tug like I had, you get that real big reason. You get this fear build up that what is life going to be like? I think the older you get as well, it gets harder and harder. I know, and in fact, I'm writing a book aimed at people of my sort of age, because if you've been drinking like I have for over 40 years, you've got this crutch you've had, you've got this thing that has been telling you that you can cope with life better because you can have a drink. Or if it all gets so bad and you get sacked from work or you get home, instead of sitting there thinking, it was because I've been drinking that I've been sacked, have another drink and the pain will go away. And you've had this thing that you've lived with you all your life. So what is life going to be like without it? And it's that terrifying fear, which I think puts so many people off giving up alcohol. So what is it like when you give up drink? How long does it take to get away from that fear factor, if you like? Well, for me, the physical effects of drink, all the alcohol has gone from your bloodstream within 48 hours at most, no matter how much you've had. There isn't any of that there. Unlike smoking, there isn't this addiction. You actually sitting there shaking, you need another drink. If you have got to that stage, you probably need some real serious medical advice. But for most of you watching this, or most of you at home, you're not in that sort of state. Within a couple of days, the physical effects have gone. What it is, it's that mental thing. It's that mental planning that says, when I get home from work, I love having a gin. I like knowing that there's a bottle of wine in the fridge, or with dinner, that lovely taste of the wine. And you need to change the whole of your life. You need to change the time that you spend in the day, because you'll have a lot more time on your hands when you're not drinking. So you need to find other things to drink. I drink a lot of water. I drink masses of water, excuse me. But I know a lot of the club soda people experiment with non-alcohol wines and beers and things like that, which is great. And certainly in the early days, all those things can really help. So replacing alcohol with something else. But you need to have a plan of action, because you'll have a lot more energy and you'll want to do things. So whether that's reading or taking up a course or doing a lot of exercise. Exercise is fantastic, all of those things. But certainly learning something and doing exercise give you a buzz. They give you what alcohol actually gives you, which is a stimulation for the happiness chemicals in your brain. When you have alcohol, it gives you a great feeling. The first glass does, you think, you get this nice relaxing buzz. You get exactly the same seeing a baby smile, or giving someone a cuddle, or going for a run. When you come back, you feel fantastic, or doing something, achieving something in your life. So doing all of those things, you need to replace that sort of buzz with other buzzes that you're going to get. And once you start giving up drinking, once you get past the sort of the weak stage, you'll be getting that buzz from the fact you're not drinking. I like going into bars and not drinking. I actually get so much pleasure not drinking. It's quite incredible. And do I think about drink? Not from the fact of do I want to drink, but yes, a lot of people ask me, do I think about drink? I went on the way to up to town this morning. We went into the local Indian shop on the local station to get some sweets for my wife's cold. And there behind the counter was an absolute sea of alcohol, all the bottles lined up. And I enjoyed looking at them. And I stared particularly at some fancy vodkas that they had. And I thought, £29.99, £30 for a bottle of vodka that someone's going to drink in a day. I thought my whole afternoon with my youngest daughter and my grandson, my wife, is going to cost less than that. Getting into the museum for free, buying my grandson a toy and having tea together is going to cost less than 30 quid. So someone's going to waste all of that money. So I enjoy looking at drink, just knowing that I've escaped from that horrendous environment. So I'm hoping actually some questions are going to come in. I can't see anything here, so I don't know whether I'm actually online or not. It'd be nice if somebody could just send me a note saying you're still here. If not, I'll have a look at some of the other questions that I've had. A lot of people do ask me, could I do the occasional drink? And the answer is no. In fact, I was asked this the other day. I was talking to an elderly lady in town who works. In fact, she's been in the insurance market as long as I have, about 45 years. And she was saying how much the market's changed over that time, and the fact that some of the operations, Lloyd's of London is one, and now a lot of the big underwriting companies are completely dry. And that's because the drinking culture is such an issue in that particular market. And she noticed I was drinking water, and she said, well, you don't drink. So I mentioned to her very briefly my story, and she said, all right, so you just have a drink at the weekend, and Julian? And I said, I don't drink at all. Well, you must miss it. Surely you want the occasional drink. And I had to really get it out to her that no, I actually don't ever want to drink. I have no desire ever to have alcohol again. It's a bit like I gave up smoking 20 years ago. I'd never want a cigarette again. Why would I? And I think you need to understand is you will get to that stage very quickly where you won't want to drink again. And it's Alcoholics Anonymous, unfortunately, have this statement that once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. And I'm, in a way, they're right, because I know that if I did have a drink I would probably very quickly go back to being an alcoholic again. I know for a fact that if I had a drink on a Saturday and enjoyed it, I would tell myself how fabulous I was only drinking once a week. And then I'd tell myself how clever I was so that I can probably do Sunday as well, because I can do those 5 days in between. And I know that then I'd tell myself, well, I can do Friday too. And I'll just be a weekend drinker. And then someone during the week will say, Julian, you can have a drink, it's Wednesday. And I'll say, yeah, all right, well, go on, just this once. And I'd quickly get back to where I was before, 2.5 bottles of wine a day, and I would be an absolute alcoholic. So no, there is absolutely no way could I have a drink again. So AA are quite right in that. But am I always going to be an alcoholic? Do I have to be scared of drink? No, I don't. Do I go in pubs? Yes, I do. Do I go in wine bars? Most days, actually, with the people I work with. Go in, we all have lunch together. Now, actually, most of them don't drink either. We all have lime and soda, but I go into them. Do I watch films with people drinking? Do James Bond films bother me where people are boozing all the time? No, they don't. The only thing that actually does bother me is the fact that so much emphasis is in movies like that is on booze, because it is a shame and it does encourage others to drink. And that's probably one of the big problems in our society in the UK, is that we are surrounded by that. It was very interesting. My holiday this year was in India, and I have fantastic holidays these days, and all of that is because I don't spend money on drink. I save something like £3,500 to £4,000 a year without drinking, at least. And the fact my wife doesn't smoke, she's saying about the same. So we've got £7,000 or £8,000 a year that we never had before to spend. Be interested to think how much you're wasting on booze and smoking, if you smoke, what you could be doing with that. But the reason I mention India is because India, drinking wasn't a very big culture in India, unlike China, where it is a huge drink amongst men only, with drinking spirits and things like that. India, there wasn't. But India, over the last 5 to 6 years, has become a very wealthy country. And you now have a quarter of the population, which is about 250 million people, who have middle-class type lifestyles and are as wealthy as we are in the UK. And what they're finding is amongst the younger people, booze, and Western type booze, is becoming the cool thing to do. It's great to get home. Look at me, I've got a beer. Everyone's into selfies and mobiles and things like that. And they're doing pictures of themselves with champagne, pictures with beers, pictures with fancy cocktails, because it's become the cool thing to do. And talking to the elder generation, they're so disheartened by it because it's social media mixed with booze is beginning to have a huge impact on that society. So that's the sort of thing I find a great shame. I'm seeing there's a couple of questions coming through, which is really good. Do your wife and girls drink? And if so, how do I feel about that? My wife doesn't drink. She used to drink just to keep company with me, and because really I used to bully her into drinking. So I'd have a bottle of wine because I didn't want to sit on my own and drink. I'd pour her a glass. She'd have a sip of it, and then I'd knock her glass back. And when we used to go out for a meal, I'd order her a bottle of wine so that I had 2 bottles of wine. So no, she never really drank. My girls drink on occasion, my daughters. Does it bother me? No. If I found that they were drinking to excess, yes, it would. But I don't think they would anymore because they've got the example of me. The very clear example, they've seen what I was like. They know what it was like, and they've seen this phenomenal change, both in terms of physical and my personality. And so, no, they wouldn't be encouraged to drink. I've learned in the past, drinking places a code in your brain. If you have one drink, the code will be switched on, and sooner or later you're back drinking. It's a clever and devious drug. Yes, it is. That's from James Well. It is. Alcohol it triggers, as I said, triggers those happiness chemicals, and then you can start getting this downer, and then you want some more. So the brain says, "Yep, get some more, get some more." And you've got the voice in your head, which is always there, which is almost like a sort of horror sitting in your shoulder, is the one that whispers, "Go and have another drink." And that's the one that's driven by this drug. And that's why I say you need to get those happiness chemicals from somewhere else, and that is, you know, a walk, exercise. Going for walks, fantastic. Looking at the sky. Last night was fabulous. There was wonderful stars out, even here in London. Looking up, you see the Plough, you can see Orion, you see Betelgeuse and Rigel and whatever. Just looking at that and imagining how fantastic that was. All of that gives you a buzz. You need to sit there with a beer or a glass of wine. So, were you honest with other people about your reasons for giving up? Yes, I was, which is why I wrote the book. So absolutely, totally honest with the reasons for giving up. And there's nothing in the books actually that I hide about myself. I think it's very important to share those views. How soon did I tell everybody is an interesting thing to talk about. Did I tell my wife straight away that I was quitting alcohol? No, I didn't, because I knew she wouldn't believe me, and be interesting how many of you would tell your partner and whether they believe you, whether it's just here we go again. So no, I didn't. I kept it to myself for a few days. I wanted her to suddenly realise what I did do. I started a star chart, and I put some stars in to reward myself with the fact that I was giving up. We have all sorts of star charts going all the time at the moment. My wife's got one for chocolate and cake, which she's giving up for a month. So bless her, she's doing really well on that. And I'm accompanying her with chocolate because I get the odd vice to replace something. I've got to have something in my life. And so chocolate's one of those, a bar of chocolate a day, but I haven't had that for 2 weeks now. So no, I didn't tell her straight away. I had things like that ready to show her, but actually she started to notice. She said, "You haven't been drinking?" I said, "No." "Why?" And I said, "Because I'm never ever going to drink again." And she just sat quiet, bless her, didn't say anything, didn't say, "I don't believe you," or thankfully, "Oh, how fantastic," just in case I'd have failed, which was very nice of her. But to be honest, almost I wish she had, because building a fan club is a fantastic help. So if you do have people that you feel happy to share that fact you're going to give up with, and you know that they'll believe you, then share it. Even write something down. One of the people, the gentleman I mentioned with the children that he didn't want to hurt anymore, and his reason for giving up drink, what I actually asked him to do, and he did it while he was in front of me, is write them a letter saying why he was quitting alcohol and why he was never going to drink again and how much he loved them and he was doing it for them. And I said, write that letter, put it in your pocket, go home, give up today. There's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't, wait for Sunday or whatever. Give up today, and when you've done a week, give them that letter for them to keep. And tell them never to open it, but to keep it for at least a year, and then you can open it or they can give it back to you. And I said, if you fail and you drink, ask them to rip that letter up and never read it again. And he said, well, it's a terrible thing to get me to do. That's like a mental torture. I said, good. You need something like that in your life. You actually need something. I said, if you can't promise yourself you're going to give up, how can you promise other people and expect them to believe you? Write it down, give them that letter. And I know he's done that, and I know he hasn't had a drink since. It's only a month, but bless him, he's still off the drink, which is fantastic. So yeah, get a fan club on side. I now, particularly because I write and because of Club Sober and things like that, if I actually told Laura and everyone I'm actually back on the booze, people would be horrified. I would feel an absolute heel. I know the people I work with would be appalled. Even the people who've given me abuse for giving up drinking, even the people who sort of make fun of me, I know would be horrified, because I know secretly they're absolutely very, very, very proud of me. And you can be incredibly proud of yourself when you give up alcohol, because it's a huge thing to do. Not because it's difficult physically. It's not like climbing a mountain, or it's not like swimming a channel or something like that, because mentally it's one of the hardest things you can do, getting over that hurdle. And if you can do it, wow, can you be proud of yourself. But believe me, once you do get over that hurdle, it is so easy. It really, really is. Going through life without booze is fantastic. And I actually wrote down, I guess somebody said, what is like, if you could summarize what life is like in a few statements. I mentioned the fact you get more time on your hands, which is incredible. The amount of things I do, because I've got so much more money as well, My wife and I, we now live in London. We've moved away from the coast because we didn't want to retire down there. I want to be young and have a fantastic time. We did 100 shows, events, exhibitions, museums and things last year. We've done 15 already this month. It's incredible the amount of things we're getting up to. Freedom is the big thing. Freedom from that stress of where's the next drink coming from. Not having any of that is fabulous. I went to a really great Rolling Stones concert, not the real Rolling Stones, but a Rolling Stones tribute band on Friday night. It was fabulous. An interval, I came out to go for a wee and get an ice cream, and there was everybody at the bar fighting to get the drinks before the guys came on for the second half. And you could see people getting upset, people having to have warm beer because that's the only thing that you could get because there was too much of a queue for the wines. And all that stuff, it's lovely to laugh at that. Think, I don't have any of that. Not interested. I'll go to the ice cream queue, no one queuing for that, and I'll sit and have an ice cream and enjoy the rest of the show, which is fabulous. Am I happier? Incredibly happy. Is life more fun? Yes, it is. Is it boring because you don't drink? No, it isn't. In fact, drinkers are boring, and you'll find that you'll go out with them, you'll still go and meet people, you'll go to events, you'll go to weddings and things, and you'll want to clear off at 10 o'clock when people start repeating themselves and getting boring, because it absolutely stinks being with people like that. And you know they're not going to remember the fact you've gone, and you know they're not going to remember what you said anyway. So no, you won't find that. Is it rewarding? Yes, it is. Look at the fact that I've got those 2 children. Look at the fact that my brother, bless him, who died when he was 56, has 2 grandchildren that he never saw and he'll never ever see, and more importantly, they will never know him. So, look at the life I can give, hopefully, my little grandchildren, because of my knowledge, my example, my experience, everything else, because I'm still here rather than dust somewhere because I carried selfishly on drinking. So I'd like you to think, as I sort of summarize up from this evening and from this blog, think about 2 things. Think about 1, what is that great big reason that you want to quit alcohol? And I don't talk about cutting down alcohol or anything else like that. I wouldn't know how to do that. It wouldn't work for me. And if you've tried and failed and it doesn't work for you, I'm talking about quitting forever. What is the big reason that you could feel on that gives you that tug? And it could be your partner and your love for them. It could be your children, or the fact that you want to live and achieve something, have grandchildren. It could be any of those sort of things. But you don't want to lose your job. You don't want to go through that embarrassment again of being sacked. Or it could be your health is being destroyed and you believe, hand on heart, that it will improve if you give up drink, because it will. Write it down. Write it somewhere that you can keep strong, so that if you are tempted to have a drink, you can get it out, read it, focus on it, and think, no, this is the reason I'm not going to have a drink, and go for it, because you are strong enough. Everybody's strong enough to do this. I didn't think I had any willpower, but wow, you don't need it once you get over those few days hurdle, if you're doing it forever. And I think that is the absolute key. If you have the mindset it's forever, it's easy. If you do it for a month at a time, all you're going to think of is when's that next drink coming from? 10 days to go and I can have that glass of wine or make that decision again. Just damn well do it and have a happy life. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm now going to have a fabulous dinner with a glass of water and enjoy the rest of my Sunday and enjoy the rest of your evening. And I'll hopefully be invited back next month to talk to you again about some more things. But if you have any other questions, do keep sending them in, because I will answer, or you can get onto my website, idon'tdrink.net, and ask me things through that. And I do try and respond to any questions that I get. So thank you very much and good evening.